add a marker in. All right, we are continuing on with the P5 running sort of rebuild after the reading through the game development patterns book. Game program patterns, yeah, I guess that's more appropriate. And last time we left off, we were getting this error: gameObject.draw is not a function. So I didn't have a chance to go look at it last night, but I did have some ideas for like debugging this. And the easiest way is to come in here to grid. So it's basically telling us line 36 here in grid, it's not able to find this draw. So whatever we think that this is, it's not what we think it is. So what I'm going to do is wrap this in brackets. And before we run into this error, I'm going to put a debugger statement in. So for those of you who don't know what the debugger statement is, this is going to, when I rerun this, pause the game and allow me to inspect the everything that's going on in here. So I don't really care about you. Here's our debugger, and we can take a look at gameObject.draw, and so we can see what's inside of it. So in this specific case, we can see this.cells, undefined. Are you unable to? So gameObject is seen as a method, or is that just the class? And that's what I'm seeing, is just it's an instance of this class. Let's put a watch on this down here. Okay, watch expressions. I don't care about this velocity at y. Let's go ahead and watch game object. I mean, okay, so we see it's a class, it's a length of 2, name is game object, and that's it. So okay, so we see its type. Yeah, but okay, so this isn't exactly what we were expecting it to be. And we no longer have access to this.cell, so that's interesting. I wonder if I should put kind of breakpoint here. Let's refresh, restart. That will break us right at this point. So we can now see, okay, this.cells. We're gonna go into 5, 1. Oh, interesting. Okay, so it knows that 5 and then 1. So we see that right here, which unfortunately I can't put that in. Let's do what would be this dot cells position 5, position 1. So what are you? Are you an actual game object? That's interesting. Okay, I turned off that. Let's press play. We're now paused here, but we have game object. Another thing that I can do is I can go to console here and actually, no. I want to clear. I want to just take a look at this. Well, I can just take a look. We're frozen in time, so I can actually look at this. So game object dot I mean, that's almost like it's thinking about it has the class itself as opposed to an instance of the class. And I'm wondering if like when I'm putting these in there, am I doing that correctly? Let's go find that. So I think that's in main game. So we have this for object. We create a new game object. So we are calling the constructor properly. We're passing in all this stuff. so we know it's a game object. We create the new grid. We add the floor object to the grid. And then we're telling the grid to draw. We go into grid, it's drawing, it's trying to loop through all the cells. So it's trying to find like that specific cell that we put it into to make sure it's in that one. Get that game object out of it, and then run the draw function on it for game object. So we're showing that it is a game object. We have a draw method on here. Now it's not like, yeah, this is part of the constructor, so this should be a method. And it's not the same. Okay, so we do have a draw method. And right here we can see, okay, there's a draw, so function draw off of the prototype of game object. So theoretically I should be able to type game object dot draw. Game object dot draw is not a function. Why can't you find it? So the debugger knows that it's here. I wonder if I need to like change its name to something else. Maybe there's like something else getting in the way. Because if I name this to like render, actually, how about this? Center location. Like, can I get center location out of it? No, okay, so it's not, we're not getting any of these properties off of here. Can I get like the location? No, okay, so it's none of these things. So it's not the right game object. So let's go back through and like trace as we're adding these things in. So I'm going to take my debugger out of here temporarily. So at the beginning of the game, we create this new floor. Okay, so we create a new game object that's a floor object. If at this point in time, I do a debugger, so we have a floor object. Can I now get a location? I can, okay. Which means I can also do draw, I could do any of those things. So we have the floor object. We then move this down. We have our new grid. We're adding our floor object into the grid. Okay, so let's take a look at the grid here. So we have grid.cells, and inside of here, so the 5, so Y5, so 5 down, or 6 down, I guess, and 2 to the right, that is where our game object is. And it looks like it didn't put it in here properly because it's no longer what we think it is. So let's see, grid.cells, position 5, 1. So if I do grid.cells, position 5, position 1, that gives us this class of game objects. Then I want position 0. And then can I do dot location? No, okay, so I've lost it at this point in time. So when I add it in, we take in the game object, and autocomplete. The difference between a capital G and a lowercase g. Well, that's fun. Let's go ahead and take away our debugger line here. And there's our drawing. GameObject.draw is not a function still, except it drew. Do I have to? Okay, I had to refresh one more time to make sure it wasn't like keeping in errors from previous run-throughs. But okay, we're drawing it now. That was fun. Okay, so how do we like verify that it's in the correct spot, like that we added in to the correct one here? If we take a look at our in the game when we create here, we're going 50x and 250y. And if we take a look at our game data, we're setting the cell sizes to 50 and the screen width to 1000 and like 500. So we can figure out that our cell size is 50. So if we do, let's bring up a calculator. Actually, I could do this in JavaScript. Okay, so we have 50 cell size, and your location is 50 to the right. So that's going to be 50 divided by 50, which is 1. So that means the x should be 1, and we see that right here. It's 1 over as opposed to 0. Okay, so this should be correct. If I move this to like even 49, that should put it. Oh, that should put it over here. 1 to the left. Because 49 divided by 50 is 0.98, and if I floor that, that should go 1 left to 0. So I'll have to make sure I'm flooring it properly and not just rounding it. I think that I am. I don't think I'm doing it the other way, right? So 50 divided by 49 would be 1. Okay, so let's make sure I'm doing that math correctly here. So in grid add, I'm taking the actual location. So game object, oh, it's the center. Look, I forgot it's the center location. So the center location is still, like even if I move it 1 pixel to the left, it's still here. We have to go significantly more to the left for it to move over. So we have to go to like 5. And then it will move. I wonder if that, where'd that go? And I wonder if it would be best for me to put, to not do the center location and rather just like add it in based upon the top left corner. That might be like the appropriate thing to do. Maybe we should do that. We can even get rid of this, let's see, game object. We can get rid of the center location. In grid, when we add, instead of the center location, we'll just do the game object dot location, and that should put it into like the appropriate cells based upon what the actual X and Y is, not what like the calculated center is. So let's try this again. Where did I end up putting you? So 5x and 250y. So 5 divided by 50 is 0.1. So that should go into 0, which should be this on the x. So that should be here in this first one. And I wonder if it's like too far to the left. Let's take a look at grid.cells. So you're still 5 down. But okay, so you are in the correct one. You're 0, right? Oh, right, because I'm not drawing it in the correct space. Here in grid, I'm just going to the direct one. We should now change this to be the appropriate thing here. So we're going to loop through all the y's. So this dot cells dot for each. We're going to get the y cells. I guess this is going to be the x cells. And then in here, I want to now do x cells dot for each. And now I'm going to get all of the, I guess like the cells. So and then I can loop through all the cells. And now I'm going to get the game objects. Or I guess this is going to be each game object. And this is a single cell, really. So this is really game objects. We get a single game object, and we're going to call game object dot draw. Like that. Okay, so that should now draw it exactly where it is. Game objects dot for each is not a function. Is that for each with capital E? There you go. So now it's appropriately drawn in its square. I'm doing like by the top left corner now, and we'll see whether or not we run into any problems, but maybe this will make it a little bit easier for my brain to sort of reason about what exactly is going on. Okay, so now we know that's going into the appropriate spot on the X, and then for the Y, we're putting it in 250, and then it's 50 by 50 squares, so 250 divided by 50 is 5. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that seems appropriate. If I put this down by like, I don't know, 400. So 400 divided by 50 is 8. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It should go down here. And there it is. Okay, so perfect. Then what that means for us is we can now take this game data and start drawing out all the floors. And like creating these objects based upon where they are in the level, and then inserting them into the grid. So that'll be fun. All right, so to begin, let's do floors first, which is exactly what we have, is that game object floor. And I want to loop through the level, and for each of these floors, based upon its position in the array, we're going to multiply by the cell size, and that will be its X. And then the Y, that's going to be a little bit more interesting. I think right now we're just going to have the floor, like the floor Y be at, I don't know, screen height is 500, so maybe let's just make this 400, so it's 2 cell sizes up from the top. Okay, so floor Y. Let's now go ahead and loop through this, and we'll use this data as actually creating our grid for us. So in our main game, we want to loop through all of the levels, and that's when we're going to create the floor objects and add them to the grid. So this has to happen down here. So we're going to do game data dot level for each, and so this is going to be like the cell essentially, like so like what a cell is. And then depending upon what it is, we're going to then place the object in there. So let's just, for right now, just say, hey, if it's a floor, so if cell is equal to a floor, then we want to create a new floor object. But we want more than just the cell. We also want the index. So the X position of this is going to end up being the index times gameData dot cell size. And then here, gameData dot floor Y. All right. And then this skips everything else, but we should have the proper gaps there. So let's go ahead and see if this creates our level for us. Can access property location, game object is undefined. That's grid line 30. Okay, so that's right here when it's trying to add in. Game object has a location on it. And it's not like it's private or something, so it should be able to do gameObject.location.x. Which means when I'm creating this, it's X, the index times gameData.cell size, that's a number. And then the Y, gameData.floor Y, that's a number. Did I not add? I didn't add it in. So let's see, for there. Okay, so we need to make sure that we actually add in our everything in there. So here we see, okay, we have a floor, a gap where the start is, floor, and then I think some of those were a spike. Then we had a spike up, space. Okay, so floor, then start, floor, spike up, space, floor, and then end. So perfect, that's exactly what we were going for. So this is our map. We can now potentially create this level that could be like really long. And that will be the next thing, right? Our grid only works if we are putting things on the screen. So if we want to have things off of the screen, we need to make sure that it's not into the grid, or maybe it's like outside of the grid. So that way we're not like rendering it, but also we're keeping track of it still. So that might be like the next interesting thing to do. But let's go ahead and get the rest of these sort of set up here. So we have floor. Let's do start next. So we want something that like looks like a starting thing. I'm thinking for our case, we could just have like a vertical line that's maybe yellow to sort of like, oh, start. And then we can have green for, you know, finishing. Or maybe we can have like a white line. I don't know. Maybe yellow would be best. So I think back to here. So in this draw module, we have draw floor. We probably MIIG, can you learn OOP from my videos? I'm not creating like an OOP tutorial from this, so it won't be as direct of a learning as if you like went on just like found a here's how to do OOP. But I am like, I don't try to do any like bad practices with OOP, if that makes sense. So I'm not gonna say absolutely yes, but I'm also not gonna say no. I think it's just gonna be another example that you can pull from for how OOP can be done, specifically in JavaScript. I do also like to throw in a bunch of functional stuff into my OOP as well. Okay, so we're gonna have our draw module. So we have this draw floor here. I can put like a whole bunch of these together. So like we have the draw module, but we're also gonna like potentially have a draw start constructor. Other languages like Java are like do not like this type of thing at all. They want you to have like one file, one class. In this case, it's like here, all the draw modules go into this file. And they should be pretty short, hopefully. Okay, so color equals, let's make this color yellow. And then we're gonna have the draw method. So we're gonna take in the location, the width, and the height. Fill this dot color. And I'm thinking this probably could be another rectangle. So a rect, the location dot x, location dot y, the width, and the height. I mean, it's not, this is exactly the same, isn't it? So, do we really even care about this being different? The only difference here is that it's yellow versus being brown. Now, we might like want other things here too. So there's this idea in solid that you want, how do I want to put this? In like solid object-oriented practices, we both want like dry code, so we don't want to repeat ourselves. But at the same time, we want to separate out what is it? The single responsibility pattern. So like draw floor is only in charge of drawing the floor. We don't want it in charge of drawing the start line too. And the reason for that is because the start line may be different, like changing at different rates. Like we may change the start later, but not want to change the floor. And so therefore, these are only temporarily the same code, and they may be different later. And so like there's a big like sort of thing about drive, like, ooh, maybe we shouldn't change this because of that. Mig, you're looking on Rust, but you make JS videos, a whole game on Rust and JS. What I'm doing is I'm building this out in JavaScript first. And then as soon as I finish that, I'm gonna switch over to Rust and rebuild this exact same game in Rust. So that way we can like compare and contrast how everything looks and like what changes I had to make programming wise in order to like make that work. So this is the first part. Okay, so we have this draw start. Basically, that was my entire thing of why I'm allowing myself to have this draw start. If it turns out we're never gonna change it, I might come back and refactor this to just use draw floor and change this to be like draw static or something like that. But let's go ahead and come to game here. Here's this, so here's the draw floor we use. So we're gonna have an else if cell is equal to, I think it's start. And then we're gonna say, well, first of all, you should be a const because we don't actually need you. Okay, so const, this is gonna be a start object equals new game object. We're gonna have to do exactly the same thing here. So it's gonna be index dot game data dot cell size. The game data dot floor y. The game data dot cell size. Cell size. What are these? The The width and height. Okay, so this is definitely not true. Like, so start, like what we care about start being. The width is probably going to be something like 5, and then the height is probably going to be our the cell size. So game data dot cell size, and then finally new draw start. Okay, so then at the end of this, we then grid.add. This is going to be our start object. Okay. Now I do see some similarities here, and these can be refactored to be a lot more dry. But we'll get into that when we get to the next one, and then the rule of 3 will kick in, and I'll combine them together. Let's go ahead and make sure our start shows up. It does not. Can't access property cell size. Index.gameData is undefined. This is game.js line 20. Okay, so index.gameData. I think we wanted this to be index times gameData. There you go. And so here's this this start, and that's a problem. I don't actually want it down there. I want this to be like way up here. And if I think about what is a start? Well, start should be normal ground with like a starting flag on top of it. So that's what we want here, is normal ground down below. So we kind of want this entire thing in here first. So it's going to tell us that's going to be down below. So we want to first grid.add. This is going to be a floor object. Then our start object, we want to be above that. So this is going to be, let's see, our X and the Y, right? So floor Y, we actually want this to be floor Y minus gameData.cellSize. And I think that will do exactly what we want it to do. So here's our starting line right here. Now, if I don't want it to be like on the left-hand edge, that's fine. We just like change this now to be like more appropriate for us. And that could be a draw thing where we just draw it over to the side. Or it could be where we just say, hey, look, if we're our X, so you're the X right here. Oh, the X and the Y, any. So for start objects, I want this to be like plus, let's see, index times gameData plus dot cell size plus like half of the cell size essentially. So gameData dot cell size divided by 2. And that puts it right into the center here, or maybe even the right-hand side. So we could do something like that. And we'll have to sort of like figure out like exactly how we want to put this. Kind of want plus cell size minus whatever the width of this is, which we see right here is 5. So minus 5. And we can also like define all of these things inside of gameData. So that way we don't have to have magic numbers here. We could have like, ooh, what is the, like what is that flag? What is everything else? And that might be something really important for our editor so that we can draw these out, like have it show what we think that it should be properly. But for right now, let's not worry about it too much. That's our starting line. So that's cool. So we're gonna have to start our player right here. Let's see, my videos for newbie in game design or for all kinds of programmers. Let's see. I am happy to answer any level of questions. I tend to do maybe like not advanced videos, but not always like junior like and super beginner videos as well. I think I'm aiming like a little bit more for like the mid-level, but I think that. Utsby, good morning. You admire my collection of Normal's hot beverage containers. I have 3, so I just sort of go through them until eventually they're all dirty, and then I have to do the dishwasher, and then I like can start over again. I do want like more of them because then they can last longer before I have to wash them all. But thank you. All right, so we have our start here. Next one is we're gonna have a spike, I believe, right there. Yep, a spike up. So a spike's gonna be interesting. Let's go ahead and create that. So game object, we're not gonna have to change at all, I don't think, but we're gonna have to have a draw for spike. So class draw spike. And then, so we'll have a constructor, this dot color equals a new color. What should our spike color be? Maybe like a gray. We have the draw that takes in the location, the width, and the height. Fill this dot color. This is not going to be a rectangle. We're going to make this as a triangle this time. Is it just triangle? I don't remember. I have to go look it up. Oh, you make tea in terminal closed container? I feel like that's a joke about something with a terminal, and I'm not sure I fully get it. But I like tea, so let's see. Let's go to reference. I want a shape. Oh no, triangle is it. Okay, so triangle, and then it's gonna be XY, XY, XY. Okay, so like XY, XY, XY. That's it. So it has to be like a, it's not an array, it's just, you know, the XY of each one. Okay, so, oh, thermal. Okay, got it. I thought it was terminal at first, but thermal. I don't have a thermal or thermos or any of those things. I just boil water, I brew loose leaf, and then just like put it into a mug, and I have to drink it pretty quickly because obviously it will cool down pretty quickly too. But I mean, the point is to get as caffeine into me as quickly as possible, so I'm okay with that. Okay, so how do I want to end up doing this? Do I want like the X, like where do I want the location to truly be? Like the top, and then we just go out from there, or like the left, and then we go up from that? It's a little bit hard for us, you know, for me to tell with this. Now the other thing is I could do the, like pretend that it's a rectangle, just like what we did with everything else, so that the location is actually up here, but then we're gonna go into the middle like that. Maybe that's best. So the top position is gonna be location.x plus width divided by 2. So that's the first x, and then the y is going to be at, I guess it's going to just be location.y. Now the second one, let's do the bottom right. So down here, we're going to do location.x plus width, location.y plus height. And then the other one, the last one, is the location.x, and then the location.y plus height. And I believe that will do it for this triangle. So now we have a draw spike. Let's go back to our game. This is starting to get a little bit annoying here. So let's do this one last time, and then we're going to refactor it. So else if cell is equal to, I think, spike. So we know that a spike has this for object. And then we're going to have like the spike object. So const spike object equals new game object. Okay, so it's index, so it's x position. So that's going to be this exact sort of same thing that we have going on here. It's actually going to be very similar to this because we want it above. So let's just go ahead and replace you, and we'll make you a spike object. Index times game data times. Okay, so this is going to be above, but I want it to be in like that top left. So it's really just going to be, let's see, this is the index. This is the x, right? So index times get cell size. So not any of this. We then minus to bring it up. Our width is going to be the full cell. So game data dot cell size. And then the height is going to be the cell size. And then the draw is going to be a draw spike. And then we need to add both of these in. So we're going to do grid.add floor object, grid.add spike object. And so if we run this, I saved, is it not spike? Oh, it's spike up. There's our spike. That is a seriously nasty looking spike if our player is like only this big. It's gonna have to have a pretty big jump to go. And we can play around with the sizes for that. That's why we have like the different sections for when we actually create them, is it'll be easy for us to like, you know, update that. And that's again like where we could potentially in the game data just say, hey, spikes are like, you know, half the size of the cell size or like a standard size. I kind of like it being something like this, and maybe we'll have our player be like double height. We'll see. Okay, so that gives us our spike object, but we've now tripped the rules of 3, and this is starting to become this really big, nasty mess. So first thing I'm gonna do before I do any refactors, it's a huge spike, absolutely, yes. Also, good morning, Chantilly. So I'm in learning game design patterns. Let's go ahead and push up all these. So we are work in progress, building out the level. I like to push this up to GitHub, and I'll actually go ahead and push this up. And if any of you want to take a look at this, what are you going to do if I click that? Okay, so try again. I mean, you say that it's successful. Refresh Git Kraken. Nope. Okay, so it's not happy. Quit and restart. All right, I'm gonna have to figure out, because it claims that succession is fine, but it's not updating. Okay, well, I'm gonna have to figure that out later, which unfortunately means, let's see, can I, let's see, so many things, let's see, over here. Can I push you up here? So, documents, code, builds, learning, P5, or 2, get push. Oh, okay. I have, oh, it might be set up for like the wrong, I think I have it set up not for the SSH. That would cause problems. Okay, I will fix that later. Unfortunately, that means that I can't like share like this specific code with you, but I have taken a git, like a commit for this, which means that if I screw up this refactor, I can go back, no problem. It'll be nice and easy. So let's go ahead and fix like this up right now. So what I'm seeing right now is we have this like if floor, and then we want to create like these very specific things. If it's a floor, the drop game is so much harder now. Yeah, and I didn't do very much. I just added in like the moving of the log at the bottom, the target. We have this start. Okay, so if it's the start, then we want to go ahead and run this code. What I'm almost thinking is, if we have like an object that has methods on this, then we can reach into there and run those methods, and it will like do the appropriate things. It'll make this a little bit cleaner, but that may not like necessarily like fix it for me as much as I was hoping for. A lot of these are the same thing, right? So we have like the index of where it's going to start, except for here where that's different. So those need to be different. The Y, I suppose all of these could potentially be different depending upon what I'm doing. So let's try like just down here. I'm going to create an object. So we'll name this like build level. For each of these, I'm going to create a function that does what these are, and it's going to be a little bit, maybe a little bit cleaner, and we're not going to necessarily, well, we can have something like, okay, I want to build a floor. So if I build a floor, it's going to be a method. So it's actually can be like this, floor. And then in the floor, we want to, let's take a look at this first one. We're going to take in the X and the Y. So the X, the Y, and the width and the height. Well, we actually know it's, floors are always going to be this, aren't they? So all we really need is the X and the Y. And then that will figure out everything else. So we need the X and the Y, and that's pretty much it there. We are then going to return this. So we're going to return a new game object that puts it in X. Put this in Y. And then game data cell size, so like the correct width and the height, and then also it does this for us. Okay, so perfect. Now build level. I can now replace this. Okay, so we don't need this if anymore. Or do we? I don't think we necessarily do. So how do we want to handle this? If it's a floor, let's start like one level at a time. So we have this floor object, and it's now going to actually just be build level of essentially just pass in cell here. Because if cell is floor, we pass in cell into here that really cares about floor. And then we call this as a method, and we pass in the x and the y. So the x is going to be the index times the gameData.cellSize, and then the y is going to be gameData.floorY, and that gives us the floor object, and then we can save that in. So if I run this, everything should still be the same, or like pure floors. Can I now get away with not even having this if and like calling straight into a floor with this? That might be really interesting. So let's try that. Can I take you just like this? So I want floor object equals build level, hand it cell. It's gonna do this. Now we have the index still, we have the floor y, and then we add you. Which means none of this happens if I make you comment out temporarily. Build level cell is not a function. Right, because sometimes that doesn't exist. So we have to now handle all of these other things that happen here. So what happens if it's floor, we have that, but what if it's start? So now we have to handle start here. Okay, so we're gonna take in the x and y. It's gonna have to take in exactly the same things, regardless of what it is. Because I'm just essentially looping through and building this out this way. Okay, so if it's a start, what did we decide what a start was? We create a floor object, and then we also create a start object, and then we can add those in. So this would be better if we also passed in the grid. So if we think about this, let's pass in the grid here. We can do new draw floor. We don't even have to do a return anymore. We're just gonna say const floor equals new game object. Then we're gonna say grid.add floor. So then here in start, okay, so here we don't need this anymore, and we don't need to keep you. Okay, so we're making it simpler. Next up, okay, start. Create a floor object. So we want a new floor object that is at like the appropriate space, and that's it. That's all we care about. So let's go ahead and we're gonna call floor. When we're doing a start, we're gonna do const floor equals this dot floor. And then the x and the y. So it's going to be the appropriate x. And the y is going to be the, what is it? It's going to be like the down, right? So we're going to have to do y plus gameData.cellSize. And we're also going to pass in the grid here. So when we do this, it adds it in automatically. So we don't even get the floor back. So we're gonna have just the grid. So it just creates the floor. And then once we have that in there, we want to create the next one. Which is this right here. So new game object. Let's go ahead and pull this in. So we're going to have, so we might as well just call this start. Is a new game object. It's, okay, so it's index times game data cell size. So that's really important for us to look into here. Our floor, I guess we are passing the appropriate things, but we have to assume that the X is correct. So we don't have to worry about this here. We're gonna say index game data cell size. We just have to say this is gonna be the X plus the game data cell size minus 5. The game data dot floor Y minus game data cell size. I think that's because I put it too far down. I kind of want this just to be Y right here. The width and the height, and then the draw start. So if we do that, so build level cell index this. Okay, so that's going to be the appropriate X. Oh, and then the Y is always going to be like where the floor is. So we are going to have to handle that. So in this case, we do want the Y to be minus this is just the Y right here. We want this one to be Y minus game data dot cell size. That's it. Okay, back up to here. Basically, all of these are taken care of now. So we have else if to there, so we can delete you. Then we have a spike up. Oh, and I forgot, we need to add that in. So grid.add start. I'm gonna do spike up, X, Y, grid. Okay, spike up, it's gonna be the exact same thing. We're gonna have this dot floor, pass in the X and the Y and the grid, and that's gonna create the floor for us. And then we're gonna have the entire spike that we're creating. So that's down here. Okay, so we're gonna have a spike equals a new game object. Remember, we're starting at the floor level for the X and the Y. The X doesn't really matter. So here you're just the X. The Y is gonna have to be the floor Y minus, so you're actually just Y minus game data dot cell size. Okay, that should be fine. The width and height, I think that's fine. And then the new draw spike, I think we're good here. And then we're going to grid.add spike. And then this goes away too. Let's see if this works. Type error, can't access property add, grid is undefined. Is that because I'm not passing in the grid? Probably. We need to pass in the grid here. Okay, build level cell is not a function. What did I pass it in? So this is 921 uncaught. So build level cell is not a function. The problem is probably one of these things is not a function here. So we have floor, we have start, we have spike up, we have space, and we have end. Ooh, okay. So space and end. So let's see. If we look down here, space and end, I think we're missing. So floor, start, spike up, space. We can probably just do nothing for that because it's just space is nothing at all. We could potentially put like some kind of graphic in there to show like a gap or something, but maybe that'll be later. And then end. Okay, so for this, it's going to be the same thing. We want a floor. Once we have the floor, then we want probably something very similar to our end here, so our start. So we're going to do let's do a new, so game object. Let's repeat draw start, and this will be draw end. And we're gonna make you green. And then it's gonna be the exact, everything else should be exactly the same. Okay, so that's draw end. Okay, so const end equals new. Okay, so our x should be exactly the same. We want it to be at the beginning, I think, so x should be fine. The y, we need y minus cell size, okay. Let's see, then the width and the height. I think the width we want to be 5, just like we have for the start. And then the height should be the full cell size. And then new draw end. Okay. Let's go ahead and try running this. See if we get everything. Okay, so everything is here. So our grid is working. We've got our level. So we now see our start, our spike, our end. And we can now like just build this out as much as we want. Now, we do have one minor problem is everything has to sort of fit into the grid. So we probably want to handle outside of the visual, like what's actually drawn here. I'm thinking for that, we basically have the grid acknowledge that there's like left, like just left of the screen and right of the screen. And we just don't care about those, but we still need to like update them, and then they're gonna get moved into the appropriate grid cells as they go. So let's go ahead and add this into our grid. Also, this refactor, I love this pattern. So this is a very functional pattern here, where I'm basically creating a lookup object and using that in this loop to sort of just do the thing. And it's not a really like a object-oriented pattern, but it's a very functional pattern. It's super, super nice for untangling really nasty repeating like if-else statements. So I love this pattern. Okay, so next up, I want to when I add things that are outside of the I guess like for right now, let's finish this. I'm gonna put the end maybe right here for right now. So I need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 more things. So game data. Let's repeat this 3 times. All right, so now we have, this is gonna be a nasty, it's gonna be a nice nasty gameplay, but I guess I'm evil like that. If I wanted to add one more thing to the right here, it's gonna be outside of the grid. which is not as nice. Let's go ahead and let's see. Status. Oh, that's a tons of things that are changed. Is Kraken not catching this? Or am I in the wrong directory there? Oh, it's only 3 files. Okay. I don't know what where I am. I'm in the wrong. I'm clearly in the wrong directory for that one. But okay, so the commit for this one is going to be refactored, creating level to use a lookup table. And again, I'll figure out how to like fix my entire key and authentication so I can push up later. Maybe it's just a reboot. But okay, so I want to add one more grid to here that will add the end to the right. And unfortunately, that means we need, for our grid, so we have cells, and it's just a grid of whatever is in the screen. I might want to have something like off-screen left and off-screen right. So this dot off-screen left is just an array. This dot off-screen right is an array. This is like my initial first thought about this. It may be a terrible idea, but I sort of like just go with this and then refactor as I go along. Now when we add, we have to determine, are we on the screen? And so we kind of do this index math here. But now we're gonna have to determine, like, is there actually something that we can add into? So we probably want to maybe have, so we have the lengths here. So if now theoretically the y index should never happen to, because we're going to control that. So this is really just the x index. So if the x index, okay, so if the x index is less than 0, so if we're at negative, then we're going to push this into this dot off screen left dot push our game object. If x index is, and I guess this can't be like either, so this can be an else if here. Else if our x index, if that is greater than, now we're gonna have to do like the count of it, right? So we start with y, so it's gonna be this dot cells of like y, so we don't really care, it's a square, so we just grab the first one, and that will give us the x, like one of those. We'll just do length. So if it's greater or equal to this, then this dot off screen right dot push game object. Else do this. All right, so then that allows us to now properly place everything where we want it to be. So in gameData, we should now be able to add in one more floor here at the end. If I save that and we rerun, our ending is not in there. And if we take a look at our grid dot cells, we can see here's where all of our floors are. At 19th, like the rightmost one, it is just one object, and we can see that it's probably the floor. But if we take a look at grid dot off screen right, it's an array that has two things. Looks like it has, let's see, height, width 50, location. Did I add two things? I may have added two things. So I think there's like a floor and another, the finish here. So here's like the finish one, and so it's off right here actually. So now theoretically, I can have everything slide over and move to the left. So if we do an update on game object, so for all game objects, we're gonna want maybe like the initial, like we can do a flag to see if it's like movable, or we can give it a velocity, like pass in the velocity. So we can just say our initial velocity here. And we can maybe have this be create a vector. Well, most things are actually going to be moving to the left. So let's actually do this as like -1, 0. And then the player is going to have to remember to create ourselves as like not doing this. This dot velocity equals velocity. And then an update, we're going to do this dot location dot add this dot velocity. And okay, so the game object, so that means in the grid, we're going to have an update. We don't have one right now. We're going to do the exact same thing that we're going to do through cells or draw. For each, we're going to then just run the update method. And then in game, so we draw the grid. I like the idea of us updating first. So grid.update, like that. Let's see if everything sort of slides to the left now. It does. So like the entire world is now moving to the left. That's perfect. Notice that we're not getting, the stuff like off to the right isn't updating. So that's not necessarily very good. I also probably want to like keep everything off to the left continuing to move, so we update its location properly. So let's go ahead and in our grid, when we do update, we also want to update everything to the left first. So this dot off screen left. So we're gonna have a game object. But we're not drawing it, notice. And then to the right, we're gonna update this too. So this dot off screen right for each. And then we want to just draw this too. Did I say draw? I meant update. Now, we're still not drawing it because every time we update this, after we move, we want to now handle any of these objects as they move. We want to like put them into new cells. So we need to recalculate what cells they're supposed to be in, remove them from cells or not. If they need to change cells, remove them from the cell and add them to the new cell that they're appropriately in. And so what does that mean? If you're off screen, you now become on screen. If you're on screen, you go into like the next cell over. And then if you're no off screen, you go into that off screen bucket. So that's definitely something that we can handle. But I'm gonna say that we're gonna do that next time, because it is around 8:15 a.m. and it's time for me to start getting ready for my stand-up for the day. In fact, my alarm for that is going off right now. So before I sort of end with this, let's go ahead. Everything is saved here, so that's all good. So the level is moving to the left. That is perfect. And then we can just say next steps are to, what we want to do, we want to now like repositions, like put each game object in the appropriate cell each frame. Okay, so that's going to be the next time. I still can't, for some reason, do my push. Or I can now, just restarting Get Kraken was exactly what I needed. So if you want to take a look at this code, I have it in Bang repo. Feel free to sort of like ask any questions. I am doing these streams every single weekday morning at around 7 a.m. Mountain Time till around, this time right now. So I will see you tomorrow morning. If you want notifications for when I go live, you can follow me here on Twitch or follow me on Twitter. And I've been experimenting with some weekend streams, but that's several days away. So we'll talk about that more when we get closer to it. So with that, I'm gonna switch over to my ending screen. Thank you, everybody, for stopping by. Hope that you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you next time. Bye.